Hi everyone, thank you for joining. My name is Protima Rodriguez and I'm the founder of Trubay India. Trubay is India's first Indian-owned, homegrown Ashtanga Yoga premium workshop and retreat organizer, bringing top international Ashtanga Yoga teachers to India since January 2019. Welcome to episode 7 of Conversations Beyond Asanas with David Swenson. David is recognized as one of the world's foremost practitioners and instructors of Ashtanga Yoga. He began practicing Hatha Yoga at the age of 13 in 1969 with his older brother Doug in Houston, Texas, and was introduced to Ashtanga Yoga when Sri K. Patabi Joyce made his first visit to the United States in 1975. David studied directly with Patabi Joyce and made his first trip to Mysore in 1977, where he learned the Ashtanga system in its original form. David is one of only a handful of Westerners to have learned the full Ashtanga system, including all of the asana sequences and pranayama, as originally taught by Sri K. Patabi Joyce, and was certified by him. He is known for both the depth of his personal practice and his ability to transform and transmit the knowledge of Ashtanga Yoga in a down-to-earth manner filled with joy, humor, and sincerity. David is married to Shelley Washington, an authorized Ashtanga Yoga teacher, and together they live in Austin, Texas with their cat Yogi and 16 koi fish. David is a living legend of Ashtanga Yoga, and it is my absolute honor to have him in Conversations Beyond Asanas. Allow me a minute while I add David onto the chat. Hi, David.
Hey, Protima, nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Thank you for joining. And it is an
Can you hear me okay? Is the audio all right?
The audio is perfect. If you could just lower your camera a bit so we can see a bit more of your face. Perfect.
More?
No, perfect. So thank you so much for doing your first live Instagram with me. And I'm really delighted to have this conversation beyond asanas with you.
I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you. So I'm going to start right from the beginning. I know you've answered this question a million times, but I want to know where did you start yoga? How, a bit about your family. Give us your background, where you grew up. Right from the beginning.
Sure. This could take a long time.
We'll just increase the Instagram lives, no problem.
Yes. I began the practice of yoga when I was 13 years old, as you mentioned, in Houston, Texas. And you may not know this, but everyone in Texas does yoga. I'm kidding. No, this is not true. I'm joking. Especially at this time, it was a very strange thing to practice yoga. Yeah. So my brother, he's 5 years older, and he was a surfer. You can surf in Texas. It does have a coast.
Okay.
And he went to Southern California in the summers. And when he was there, there's a quite famous surfing place called Swami's Beach.
Okay.
It's called Swami's because on the cliff above this surfing place is Paramahamsa Yogananda's Self-Realization Fellowship.
Right.
So after surfing, he would see people doing a bit of yoga and this sort of thing, and that got him interested. And so he found some books and so forth and came back to Texas, eating healthy foods and doing some yoga. And so I'm just a lucky recipient of the big brother that was doing healthy things. And, at the time, and I'm feeling like grandparents when they tell us stories. When I learned this yoga long ago, there were no yoga studios. There were no yoga clothes. There were no yoga mats. You couldn't even find a teacher. If you were fortunate, you could find a book. And I would be surprised if you or any of your listeners right now have heard of the first book we ever had. Yoga, Youth, and Reincarnation by Jess Stern. That was the first yoga book we ever had. Then
Wow.
Swami Satchidananda, Integral
Yeah.
Yoga, he came out with his book. B.K.S.
Yeah.
Iyengar came out with his book.
Self-realization.
Yes. We
Right.
would take these books with us to the park under a tree and read the book and just do the yoga the best we could. We're growing
Wow.
our hair long, which, you know, that was a long time ago, as you can see. But we're growing our hair long, and my brother and I were doing yoga under a tree, and police cars came.
And this is Houston, Texas.
Houston, Texas.
So
Police
Republicans,
cars
they...
came into the park and pulled their guns like this. What are you boys doing out here? We're breathing and stretching, officer. Well, the neighbors called and said, you're doing some kind of devil worship out here. Because we had long hair, we didn't have much clothing on, and we were under trees, you know, doing this kind of stuff that they couldn't relate to. It was so strange. They didn't arrest us, but this was the environment, you know?
Right.
So we were undeterred. We loved the yoga. It made us feel good. In 1973, I went from Texas to California for my last year of high school. And it's when I discovered Ashtanga Yoga. David Williams and Nancy Gilgoff were the teachers, and they were the early students of Pattabhi Jois. David Williams, he recently came out with a book called My Search for Yoga, and it's really fascinating. It's his journey through those early years, and that we're all hippies, right? The way that they would go to India took great determination. They would fly from the US to Europe and then hitchhike.
Wow.
They would travel overland, or they would ride in trucks and buses, or try to get 3 other people to get a van. And they didn't even know where they were going. All they knew is India is where the yogis are, and we want to do yoga. So he was traveling around India, and they would run into other travelers and say, hey, where's it happening? Where's the juice? They were at the Gitananda ashram.
Okay.
And because you could stay in ashrams for you know, little money, and there was a guy who did a yoga demonstration there, and it blew their minds. They had never seen anything like it. And they said, wow, who are you? What is that? He goes, oh, my name is Manju. And they said, wow, well, it's amazing. I mean, what are you doing? Where did you learn? Oh, I learned it from my dad. Well, who's your dad? Pattabhi Jois. Where is he? Mysore. So that was the connection, the first moment. And that was early 1970 time. So I met David and Nancy right after that trip, when they came back to the US and they were teaching. And then I was this 16-year-old boy, showed up in their class.
So this was 1973.
1973, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and I showed up in their class. I had never done that type of yoga before. It also blew my mind. I recall entering the class, and my first memory is the sound of this breath. Prior to that, no one ever spoke about this type of breathing, Ujjayi sound. What is this breath sound? It felt as though the walls were breathing. It was this expansive thing. And people were moving and flowing around, and sweat was dripping from their body. I remember the room was cold, and steam was rising from their body because they were so hot. I was just like, wow, what is this? Because prior to that, honestly, in the US, there was no such thing as a vinyasa.
Right.
There had never been anything like that before this came. And so we were just a young tribe of people, hippies, excited about this. And we just were very sincere and practiced our little hearts out.
So this was, then Pattabhi Jois came to California and Encinitas in 1975.
Correct.
And he taught in a small church, and you went there.
Well, it's the same room, and it was funny. It was a church, but it was also a karate school.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It was sort of, On Sundays, it was a church, but they needed to rent the space. So it was also a karate place and a yoga
Right.
studio. So David taught in this yoga studio place.
Okay.
Um, and
Understood.
so I was fortunate enough to come there. David Williams speaks with a little bit of an accent. It won't really translate to your viewers there, but a part of the U.S., North Carolina, where he's from, they talk a little like that. It's a part of the USA where people spend more time in the vowels of a word. So he talks a little like that. So the day Pattabhi Jois arrived, he goes, okay, let's go greet the guru. Let's go greet the guru. So we came to the airport and Pattabhi Jois made his first step onto the US he was traveling with his son Manju. So
So
that's
that's
when I
how.
got to meet him on his
Okay.
first journey.
And then David asked you to move to Hawaii with him.
Well, there's a lot of sort of side stories there. One of which is, so I finished my year of high school. My brother, who was always forward thinking, decided we should make a movie of two things that we love, surfing and yoga. So
Okay.
we made a surfing yoga movie.
Okay.
It called Harmony Within.
Harmony Within. Okay.
Harmony Within. It had a long subtitle, Harmony Within, a movie of living, surfing, and surviving in a natural form, one not of destruction and violence, but of peaceful harmony with nature and God. That was the subtext.
Wow. Okay.
The premise of this movie is that we were looking for a place that would make us happy. So we're traveling and wow, the ocean is beautiful and the waves are wonderful, but there's something missing. Maybe the next place will make us happy. And we keep doing this. We find out about yoga along our journey. And the movie ends with my brother sat in lotus position, the sun set. And this will not be verbatim, but it's a quote from Swami Vivekananda that goes something like this. For whom you have been searching in churches and in temples, for whom you have been looking, far and near is the nearest of the near. It is the reality of your life, body, and soul. And we had a theme song and it was a flop. No one liked the movie. But we put our hearts into it. So
Yeah.
the movie flopped and I was back in Texas. Now we filmed this in Central America and Mexico, which is a long drive from Texas. Anyway, I get a phone call from David. Hi, David, this is David. And it's David Williams. And he says, Nancy and I are going to Mysore. We want to know if you want to come over and take over all of our classes for us. So of course I did. I went to Hawaii and it was very simple. And so I went to Hawaii, yeah. Now, there's so many funny little stories. David originally taught at a park, at
Yeah.
the beach. And if he tells the story, because there was no building or anything to practice in, so he says, I would go to the park and I would do my yoga. People would come up to me and say, what are you doing? I'd say, yoga. If you want to learn the yoga, you come here every day and I'll teach you the yoga. And then he says, I'm going to put a bucket under that coconut tree there. And every day after yoga, I want you to put a donation in the bucket. This is just hippies coming to class. He says, I would teach yoga for 3 hours. I'd look at the bucket. There'd be a banana, a mango, and half a joint.
And a joint?
That's what he said. Now, I will say personally, so far in my life, I have never taken a drug. I've never drinking alcohol because we used to say growing up, yoga gets me high. It was the yoga high. But some of those hippies, that's what they had. They presented that to him for their yoga class. Anyway, then I arrived. We built a yoga room
Right.
on a little piece of dirt. So it had 8 walls, kind of like a yurt, just rough materials. And the floor was made from dirt. Okay.
Wow.
Just
Okay.
dirt. And on top of the wall, we put these bamboo poles with the pole in the center. And we didn't know what to use for a roof because we had very little money. So we put clear plastic on the roof.
Okay.
And the floor, the dirt floor, we put carpet on top. Just carpet. But because at that time, the hotels, when they will remodel, they throw away the carpet. And we go to the dumpster and take out the carpet and go, great, yoga room floor. And we put that over the dirt. If you're lucky, there's extra and you cut out a piece, that's your yoga mat, or you have a beach towel, that's your yoga mat. And so now keep in mind, this is in Lahaina, Hawaii. Lahaina is a Hawaiian word that translates to the place of relentless sun. Now remember, we built a yoga studio with a clear plastic roof in a place where the sun never stops shining. This was a beautiful room if you wanted to grow tomatoes. But I think that it was an early experiment in hot yoga because you had to get in there very soon to do your practice. And because of the dynamic nature of Ashtanga, like if you jump back, your feet hit the ground and it makes a dent in the floor because it's dirt beneath carpet.
Yeah,
so the floor is like this. There's no level place on the floor. It's just crazy. Every day after class, we have to roll up the carpet, fill in the holes, and roll the carpet back.
Wow.
And then, so this is the early days of like the business of yoga. People were paying $30 a month. Yeah, for
and a mango and a banana as well.
Yeah, no, it was just the $30. If you had $30, that's what you paid. So one day, David and Nancy, they go to Mysore, and so I'm left there to teach. And one of the students comes, and this is how we talked because it was the 70s. So, wow, man, like I'm digging the yoga, man. You know what I mean, man? But I'm a little short on cash, man. I say, wow, I am so sorry. Of course, just keep coming. It's okay. Even if you can't afford anything, just come to the class. Wow, thanks, man. Dig it. Word travels like wildfire. Within 2 weeks, no one is paying. So the classes are swelling and I'm teaching for free for hours a day and I'm exhausted, but I have to get a job to support my yoga teaching habit. So I go and I get a job in a little health food store. And after a few months, David and Nancy return and he says, wow, there's so many students. I say, yeah, that's kind of the good news. But I had to get a job. What do you mean? Well, nobody's paying. What? And the next day, everyone's paying again.
So you got a job in a health food store
yes.
with somebody who was selling drugs or something to that effect?
He wasn't selling drugs. He was an ex-criminal from New York who said that he needed to do something legitimate. So he moved to Hawaii and with his ill-begotten funds, he opened a health food store called Mr. Naturals.
Mr. Naturals.
Yes, but he wasn't natural at all, but I got a job.
Okay.
And so at any rate, David, he used to interview people before he would allow them to come to his yoga class. So maybe you try this, Protim, and here's how the interview would go. Someone would come and say, I'm interested in that yoga you're doing. I'd like to sign up for some classes. And he'd say, no, I don't think so. No, really, I think I'd like to do the yoga. No, really, I'd really like, well, no, I want you to think about it. You know, this yoga, you start doing this, it's really hard, first of all. No, I think I want to try it. Well, you know, this yoga, if you start doing this, you'll start feeling really good. And this yoga, it can mess up your life because all the things that were fun before, they won't be fun anymore. And let's say your partner, your lover, your spouse, they don't get into the yoga, this stuff will mess up your relationships. I want you to think about it before you do yoga. He'd have people throwing money. I want to do this. So,
that's a great sales pitch to get people to sign up.
Yes. Maybe you put some signs around Mumbai.
Yeah. Don't try
Ashtanga yoga, it's not for you. could work.
So, you know, you've mentioned that you've done when you were teaching teaching yoga, you've supplemented your income with you've done a lot of things. You've done
Yes.
run a business, you've done landscaping, you've done
Amazing.
carpentry. Explain, how did that happen in your part?
Well, because the whole concept now of yoga as a vocational choice was never there before. Why? Because it was hippies doing yoga. They had no money. You taught yoga because you wanted to teach yoga, and you made money doing other things. So consequently, I am not shy to work. I've done all kind of work. I'll dig a ditch. I will wash dishes in the restaurant. I've been a waiter, as you mentioned, all these different things. I've been a salesman. I had an art gallery.
Wow.
Because you taught yoga just because you wanted to share it. Later, as yoga started becoming more integrated into the mainstream people wanted to do yoga, and this whole industry started to grow around yoga classes and everything. So anyway, I will fact check one little thing you said early on at the introduction. I'm not certified to teach.
Oh, you're not certified. Okay. All right. My mistake.
I'm not certified. I am illegally teaching this right now. However, I will say that in the early days, no one was certified. That's another thing that's new in the world of yoga certification. The early years, you learn something from your teacher, you go back to where you're living, no one else is doing it, you share it, you become a teacher, or someone comes and says, what are you doing? You share with them. That's how the teaching came about. And if you look back, I don't think Pattabhi Jois was certified. Was Iyengar certified? Was Krishnamacharya certified? Granted, from your teacher, you would get some indication that, yeah, go share this information, and that's how it went. Nowadays, the whole idea of certification is a little interesting to me, because I don't know if you can truly certify someone in yoga teaching. I believe it would be possible to certify someone in asana therapy or something like that. But is it possible to certify someone in the qualities of yoga?
Yeah.
Is it possible to certify someone in satya?
So when you say the other aspects of yoga, you mean the other limbs of yoga, which is...
Well, actually, what is yoga?
Yeah.
This class is called Beyond Asanas. Asanas is one little part, right?
Just one limb, yeah.
If it were only asanas, who would be the greatest yogis in the world? Go to the circus. The circus people could do any yoga posture. And I jokingly say this, there is a difference between doing yoga or just making an asana of ourselves, right? It's not just about shapes, it's about making changes. So if you imagine someone is at a yoga university and they say, oh, what are you majoring in? Well, I was majoring in non-greed, but there's really no material future in that, so I thought I'd major in truthfulness. You can't certify someone in these qualities. Those qualities have to be emulated through character and action. It's
Living
not
the
going to be
yoga
portrayed
life.
by a piece of paper that says you took 200 hours of training. You know? But there's nothing wrong with certification, but I don't think that it's necessarily representative of who is a good teacher and who is not.
So I want to come to the next part, which is you came to Mysore, India in 1977.
Correct.
I'm really curious to know, what was that experience like? And what were the set of, what was India like? What were Indians doing? Were they practicing yoga? All of that. I'm curious to know your journey, your experiences of India and Mysore.
Probably Indians were doing what they'd been doing for thousands of years before that, because there wasn't a whole lot of technology, right? So things were rather simple. First of all, it took me days just to get to India. and I was traveling in airplanes, not on a truck or something. My flight went from Hawaii to San Francisco, San Francisco, New York, New York, Paris, Paris to Tehran, Iran, from Iran to Mumbai, and then from Mumbai to
Would have been Bangalore?
to Chandigarh, and from Chandigarh I took a bus to Kulu in the mountains.
Wow.
That was my first place.
Oh,
to
that
go.
was your first trip. Okay.
And the reason I went there, the health food store I worked at in Hawaii, there was a woman named Santosh, a wonderful woman from India. And she made these incredible ladus that people were like addicted to. They would come in for these ladus all the time. And she says, "You're going to India. You must visit my family there. They live in Kulu.
Okay.
Please, I will write them a letter and tell them you're coming." I say, "Great." So it takes days to get there. We had to take this harrowing bus ride to Kulu through the mountains. It was pouring rain. The road was just carved out of a mountainside where you look, one side is a rock and the other side is a valley, and you see buses crumpled up down in the valley. You're like, oh, and it's just like bumping along, and we get to Kulu, and first of all, I'm so crazy. The bus driver says, "Where are you going?" I say, "Kulu Manali." They say, "Where are you going?" "Kulu Manali." Well, that's two different places, right?
Yeah.
It's like saying Houston, Dallas, Houston, Dallas. It's like, well, which one are you going to? So he just dumps me in Kulu, and I guess, okay. And so it's very simple. All I have is a family name. So I'm just asking people on the street, "Hey, where's this family?" And finally, I find this family. It's pouring rain. I'm drenched wet with the backpack. I knock on the door. They open. She never sent them a letter. They have no idea who I am. No, I'm just some like wet rat hippie standing on their front door going, "I'm here." And they're saying,
"Give me my ladoos."
"What are you doing here? What are you talking about?" And they said, and I tell them, "Oh, well, your daughter told me that I should." When I said that, and this was so representative of India, they said, "Oh, then we open our home to you. However you are treated here, our daughter will be received in America. Please come." And they brought me into the home. They had never met me before.
Wow.
I'll tell you another funny story before that. So I came, I had some US dollars. I needed to cash them to get rupees, yeah? So before this bus ride, I go to the bank. And you have to wait in the long, like two lines. The one line, and you give them the money, and you get your little coin with the number, and you wait in another line.
Token number. Yeah.
And you get the token, and you give them, and you wait, and they give you. I don't even know the exchange rate. So I give this guy the money, and they come and they count out the money. I just scoop it up and pick it up to leave. And this is not a good imitation of Indian accent, but I'll do my best. He says, "Oh, sir, but this is only half of the money." I said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I just trusted you." He says, "You trust only in God." So that was my first lesson. Like, okay. Anyway, I went to Kulu and I stayed there a couple of weeks. Another funny thing, I thought, I'm going to blend in. I'm going to just merge into society here. I got a kurta, I got a Kulu cap, and I was walking down the street like, I'm going to merge in. And I turned the corner, and walking toward me are three young Indian men wearing basketball jerseys and blue jeans. And I looked and I thought, wow, all of us look like we're going to some fancy dress party. Like, really, it's not working, on either way. I think I'll just wear my normal Western clothes. Then I went down south and to Patabi Joyce. Yeah, I arrived and it was me and two other people, 3 people there.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how did you? Did he know that? Did he know that you were going to come and practice with him? How did you?
Yeah, you would generally write a letter or something, but it was very simple. You would just show up, and he knew me from America. So when I showed up, he would be, "Oh, David, what news?" And so I show up, and because there were so few people, and honestly, we were a little like Labrador dogs with enthusiasm for this yoga. But instead of a tennis ball that you throw for the dog to chase, he throws asanas, and we grab them and bring them back like, give us more. We're so enthusiastic that he decides that we should practice twice daily. Early morning, come back again at 4:30 in the afternoon, practice a second time. He decides maybe this is not enough for them. Each session, we have to do 2 complete series. Do all of first and all of second in the morning, come back in the afternoon, do first again, and add advanced series on top.
Oh my God.
Then he taught us pranayama and neti. No.
All in one day?
Yeah.
Oh
All
my
in one day you're doing this. So you just have enough energy to come from a class, get some food, and go home and just collapse. Bah! And wake up again. Oh, it's time to go back over there. And you go again and practice again, and you get some food, and bah! I did that for months. Yeah, it was very fast progression through the sequences. And
You spent 4 months in your first trip.
Yes. Okay. And he taught us neti. Not wonderful neti with Aladdin's lamp. No. Sutra neti.
Oh.
So, but he would do this to us. We would stand, and he would shove the string up our nose and wait till he sees it in the throat and pull it out and just go like this. We'd let the man do anything with us, you know. And I will be honest that the local people at that time, there was one guy, he was a Kathakali dancer. He was doing the yoga, but the local residents weren't that interested in the yoga. And so he had just us, you know, really, he had all day. So he's like, great, these people want to learn this. I'm just going to give them everything. And so it was like that. But there was no such thing as boiled water. We used to travel with iodine tablets. So you could put in your water, yeah. Or we had to boil the water. Things were so simple. I remember the day Pattabhi Jois and Amma, his wife, we just referred to her as Amma, they got a refrigerator. It was a huge thing. And it had a little freezer. It was a tiny fridge like you might find in a hotel room. It was such a big deal that they made ice. And I went to his house one day, and he was so proud. He had a little cloth, and he handed each of us an ice cube. And I sat there looking at this ice cube going, great, frozen amoebas. What am I going to do with this thing? I can't be disrespectful because my guru is handing me this ice cube. But if I eat it, I might die. So I say, Guruji, what kind of bird is that? Poof. That was so good. It was very simple. And so now Sharat, you know who Sharat is, right? His grandson. Well, Sharat and his sister Sharmila were young children. Sharat was like 7 years old. They weren't doing yoga. But I took Sharat and Sharmila to the movies. And I'm not going to say this name correctly, but you will know it if I get close. You'll remember the name of it. It was Sweeping India at the time. Hum kisi se kum nahin.
Hum kisi se kam nahi?
Yes, that's the one.
Okay.
This was the name of the movie. And it was just sweeping all over India. And, you know, it's a big event to go to the movies. So we're going to get Pattabhi Jois to come with us. I say, Guruji, come to the movies. He says, oh, all movies same. One man, one lady. Another lady coming, man going. Finish.
That's true.
All the same.
Love
and
triangle.
I said, well,
movies.
that may be true, but come, it'll be fun. He says, oh, you enjoy. So anyway.
So you took Sharatji and Sharmila. Okay.
Yes.
And what was that experience like?
It was amazing. And they were just kids. It was fun. They had a good time. And everyone would know all the songs. So even after the movie, everyone in the streets is singing, you know, whatever the song was from the movie and dancing along on our way home. We also went to the circus once, and I got Pattabhi Jois and his wife to go to the circus. Yeah. It was the National Circus of India traveling, and it had come from Bangalore to Mysore. Yeah. And it was the traditional big circus tent and all of the traditional acts, like the very flexible people. I remember there were these women who would put a handkerchief on the ground between their feet, put their hands across their chest and do a back bend and pick up the handkerchief with their teeth, things like that. There was a big cage and guys on big infield motorcycles riding around each other, woo, woo, in a big metal cage. And there was supposed to be the tiger act, you know, the traditional tiger act where the guy shows, I'm the master of a tiger and all of that. Well, it was canceled in Mysore. I'm just hesitating. Should I tell you this story or not?
No, you should.
It was canceled when it came to Mysore because during the show in Bangalore, the tiger ate the guy. He ate the tiger master in Bangalore. So when it came to Mysore, they're like, we are needing one tiger man. And they say, what happened to the other guy? Some difficulty is there. But it's okay. We need a new tiger man. So, and Pattabhi Jois, I keep saying, it's time to go now. Oh no, I want to see the tiger. I go, it's canceled, Guruji. He got eaten. No, I want to see anyway. It was pretty funny. And it was pouring rain and the holes in the roof raining down on us. And there was a woman named Sally Walker. She was there when I got there, one of the first Americans there studying. She's still in India to this day, since 1977. And she did a lot of work in India, helping to protect tigers so that they weren't being abused in zoos and stuff like that. But to the end of his days, if you said the word Sally, whatever Pattabhi Jois was doing, he would look and say, oh, Sally Walker, crazy lady. Now, I'll tell you why he said that, and you can see if you understand. So she was a very strong-willed woman from America, from like New Jersey, tough person, yeah. Now, you know, and this is still an issue to this day in India, the local young men, especially, they would see a foreign woman and they think, oh, I can do what I like. So they would come by on their scooter, maybe they grab a woman's chest or grab her bum or something, and they think it's funny. I'm walking down the street with Sally. Now, I have to preface this and say, by the time I arrived in India, Sally had zero patience. You know how difficult that would be to be in India with no patience. Yeah, you need to have patience, but she had none. Finished, over. I'm walking down the street, and this young man behind her comes up and grabs her bum, boop, like that, with his hand, and he thinks it's really funny. Sally is like some kind of ninja warrior. She doesn't say a thing. She just takes one more step forward, and she just plants her foot in the dirt, and she spins around really fast and just goes poof, and punches him right in the nose. She just spins around, goes bam, and the guy goes boof. And she says, "What were you saying, David?" I'm like, whoa. But she was way beyond the thing of chastising him and saying, you better not do that. You know, that's disrespectful. She was beyond it, going like, I'm going to let you see what I think about that. You know? And it worked, but she was a little intense.
So tell me, you then came back to India, to Texas, and at some point you joined the Hare Krishnas on April Fool's Day. What was that experience?
You've done your research.
What was that experience like?
So, you know, when I was in Mysore, I learned every series. By 1977, I had been through every series of Ashtanga Yoga, all the pranayama, everything. And just my journey back to America. So I had been in the north for those moments in Kulu, and then I was in Mysore. I want to see something else. So I went for a quick trip to Sri Lanka.
Okay.
So I flew over to Sri Lanka and I surfed. So I found a surfer with a surfboard. I went surfing. Now I was so broke. I had so little money. I rented the cheapest place I could find. And while I was surfing, I cut my foot on the coral reef. I got staph infection. It's
Oh my
really
God.
painful. And the place I was staying was so horrible and cheap that I got scabies.
Oh God.
And
Sounds awful.
then I get dysentery. And then I get on an airplane and fly back to America. I land like, and then I come in there, I'm limping along and looking for a toilet and scratching myself. I'm like, ah. So I get back to the US, but all these questions pop up in my mind. Like I'm doing all this yoga and I can't relate to society around me. I don't know if you know this term, but it's just a lot of narrow-minded people, like redneck kind of simple people, that I couldn't relate. And I'm like, we're doing all these asanas. I write Pattabhi Jois a letter. And I say, Guruji, some questions seem to have arisen in my mind, like, where are the yamas and the niyamas? What about pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi? Like, where's the samadhi, man? When does that come? And would you mind answering some other questions for me? Who am I? Who is God? What is the purpose of life? Why are we here? Sincerely, David. I write this letter, I mail it off to him. I wait for months and I never get a reply. No. It is very possible he never got the letter because the postal system was not that great. But in my mind, I thought two things. He got the letter. He does not know the answers to my questions, which means I'm on my own. Or he got the letter. He doesn't care about my questions, which means I'm on my own. So this propels me forward on a quest because I'm like, well, I'm going to find the answers to all of these things. I read St. Francis of Assisi books. I went to the Esoteric Philosophy Center. I studied palmistry, astrology, past life regressions. I fasted. I ate nothing but grapes and grape juice for 40 days one time. After the 40 days of grapes, I was kind of hungry. So there was a Hare Krishna temple, free food, and the answers to every one of my questions. They went down my list and answered it all, backing it up with traditional scriptures and Bhagavad Gita and temples and living representations. And so I'm like, I have to try this or I'm just a hypocrite. So I joined the Hare Krishna army, shaved my head, except a little ponytail, and become a Hare Krishna. Now, if I'm going to do something, I do it full on. Yeah, so I follow their regulative principles, which is vegetarian. I was already doing that. Chanting 2 hours of Japamala on my beads every day. Living simply, a life of celibacy. I had 1 gallon of water to bathe with each day. And I lived like that. They sent me all over the world. It turns out I was helping to open temples here and there and chanting and studying. I'd get up at 3:30 in the morning and take my cold bucket bath and go to Mangala Arati. And I got Brahmin initiation. I had a Brahmin thread 3 times a day. I chanted Gayatri Mantra, all of this stuff. Yeah, I was just absorbed in it. And my parents, no matter what I've done, they always say, oh, I don't understand everything you're doing, but it's okay.
Just for background, your parents were, you grew up in Texas, so I'm guessing
Yes.
you grew up in a hardcore Christian family.
No, my parents were not religious. They were Unitarians, which is a very liberal, open-minded. They weren't from
so
Texas.
Then it wasn't such it wasn't a conservative. Okay, sorry, go back to you.
The state is incredibly conservative, but my parents, I bowed out of them. They were so liberal and open-minded and loving and accepting, that they have been my greatest gurus in my life. I will say that about my parents, both of them. So I'm doing this crazy stuff and they seem to still accept it. My father, he was a philosophical guy and he respected that I was studying these things. So now you've got to go out and collect money. It became a thing about collecting money. So I would go out and travel around and sell things and trying to make money to bring back to the temple, to build the temple and so forth. But this goes on, and what happens eventually, this is just the short Cliff Notes version of the story. Yeah? I come back to the temple one day, and I'm getting yelled and screamed at by the temple authorities because I didn't collect enough money. And it all becomes about the more money you collect, the more spiritual you are. Because they say, if your heart were truly open, if you were truly surrendered, Lakshmi would smile upon you and bless you with this money. But because your heart is closed, and they're screaming and yelling at me. And now, the next day, I was back in Houston, Texas, on the street doing the Hare Krishna two-step. Do you know the Hare Krishna two-step?
Now I do.
No, right? So I was doing the Hare Krishna two-step on the street, trying to sell books.
The Gita.
My mother walks up, and my mother says, we're trying to give the book. She goes, "Oh, honey, no one will take one of those from you. Give me one." My mother takes the book and says, "Oh, Hare Krishna, son," and goes away. And she goes back to work, and her colleagues look at her and they say, "Did you see those freaks out there on the street?" And she says, "That's my boy." You know, they just accept like the mother's love, you know. So that was the day I went back to the temple, and they're yelling at me about not collecting money and things like that. And I look around the temple and I go, there's something wrong with this picture. Here I am living within this religion, yeah, within this very supposed to be elevated spiritual environment. Some people are nice, some are mean, some are spiritual, some are mundane, some are humble, some are just really egotistical and not nice people at all. And I look at my parents, they're not wearing robes and they're not chanting, but they seem incredibly spiritual to me. Wow. They seem to exhibit truly what yoga is. They are showing to me unconditional love. It seems to me we have the same chance for spiritual growth out there on the streets of the world as we do within the confines of this religion, so I'm out of here. Now, I'm a little slow learner. It was 5 years.
Wow.
5 years. Yeah. So I pack up everything that belonged to the Hare Krishnas. I said, "Thank you very much, but I'm leaving," and I leave. Now, I leave there with zero money, but I've got to get a job. And I'm like, but what is my resume? I've been stretching my body. I've been living in a treehouse in Hawaii. I've been stretching my body in India. I've been chanting Hare Krishna and asking for money on the streets for 5 years. And then it dawns on me, David, you just graduated from the Hare Krishna School of Business. For 5 years, these people taught me to sell stuff. And it dawns on me, and I'm speaking to myself now, wow, David, if you can sell a Bhagavad Gita to a cowboy on the streets of Dallas, Texas, and try to convince him that God is actually a cowherd boy and not Jesus, you could sell anything. So I became a salesman. I opened an art gallery. I thought it's much easier to sell a painting matching someone's sofa than it is to try to convince a redneck that Krishna is God, right? So, but secretly, I'm doing my yoga. Outwardly, I'm a businessman. I wear business suits. I carry a briefcase, yeah. But secretly, I'm in the closet doing my yoga, yeah. This becomes a little dry, this life of just being a business guy. So I go back to Hawaii. Nancy Gilgoff is teaching there still. And it's 1989. She hosts Pattabhi Jois there. I haven't seen him for 12 years, since 1977. I've been on this quest, yeah? And so the first day of class, she brings me up to him. She's sort of excited. She says, "Guruji, look who it is. It's David." He says, "Oh, so many students." He doesn't remember me. Now, I
Oh
had
no.
long blonde hair down to my waist. I had cut my hair. I looked different. It's 12 years. He's had thousands of students. I say, okay, it's all right. He doesn't remember me. No problem. I'm happy to be back. Now, if you've done Ashtanga yoga in a Mysore class, way back when we used to be able to adjust each other, do you remember those days long
Yeah,
ago before
it's a
COVID?
blur, but yeah.
It's a little. You stand on your mat like this, waiting for the drop back. Yeah. So I'm waiting for my drop back. So I stand like this. He steps up. He catches my waist, and I start to lean back. As soon as he touches me, a little light bulb. He says, "Whoa, David Swinson!" Whoa. He remembers me. He remembers my body, and it all comes back to him. I come up and back 5 times. The last time I come up, his face is right there in front of me. He has a huge smile. His eyes are twinkling. His cheeks are rosy. He looks me in the eye and he goes like this, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama. Now, I don't know how he ever found out that I became a Hare Krishna. One day I'm there, I'm fired up about the yoga, and I disappeared. Someone must have said I joined the Hare Krishna. He wasn't chastising in a way, maybe he respected it, but he just went like he's playing the kartals. And I have an epiphany in this moment. Yeah, I'm like, wow. Everything I've been looking for, I already have. I have been like a fish swimming in the Pacific Ocean, swimming up to every other fish saying, have you seen the ocean? Have you seen the ocean? Have you seen the ocean? You watch, I'm going to be the one that finds the ocean, and I'm already swimming in the ocean of what I'm looking for.
That's so insightful.
And Rumi says, this will not be verbatim either. He goes, I'm knocking, wanting to know what is on the other side. The door opens. I've been knocking from the inside. So I realize I was a bit like in the novel, The Alchemist. I traveled around and did all this search and landed right back where I started before.
Everything was within you.
Everything I already had. I thought of all my teachers. I thought of my parents. I go, wow, they have been my greatest teachers. They taught me about unconditional love and compassion. My brother introduced me to the world of yoga. Wow, thank you, Doug, for that. David Williams and Nancy Gogoff, I learned about Ashtanga from them. From them, I met Pattabhi Jois. And he only ever said, do your practice. Do your practice, yeah? And so I had my practice. I had these teachers, all of this inspiration. And I'm like, here I am, right back on the mat. The practice had not changed, but I had. The eyes through which I view the world had evolved. And the thing that was the same now took on a new dimension. And I had this other realization. And it's a definition of a yogi that I like to use. A yogi is one who leaves a place a little nicer than when they arrived. That's all it says. It doesn't say how many asanas they can do. It doesn't say how many sutras they have memorized, or how long they can sit in meditation, or how wonderful they can sing a bhajan. All those things are wonderful, but what happens after? Yeah. If all of those things don't turn into some kind of positive action, then it's emptiness. So this was my sort of image that came to my mind. The practice of yoga, our sadhana, whatever it is, you practice Ashtanga, all yoga is ultimately, it's our same goal, right? Yogas chitta vritti nirodha, to control the mind, to become a better person. So our sadhana, whether it's chanting japamala, or doing asanas, or meditating, or doing selfless work, all of the sadhana is nothing more than a gardener tilling the soil. If you've ever planted a garden, the first thing you do, you take a spade and you turn the earth. and you put in compost and nutrients and you make this incredibly fertile ground. That is what practice does. Practice in and of itself is not spiritual. Spirituality is not determined by the practice. Rather, spirituality is determined by the focus, the intent, and the action of the practitioner. So when we do a lot of practice and we make this fertile earth, that's it. We're just fertile. The seeds we plant in there next will determine our maturity of understanding. What will happen to someone who does a ton of practice and throws some ego seeds into that ground? They'll grow bigger than the average person because of the fertility. So again, spirituality is not determined by the practice, rather by the focus, the intent, and the action of the practitioner. It is our duty when we do yoga to try to take whatever positive energy we've got and share it. So maybe this will be a good way to wrap it up. If we distill yoga down to its essence, to increase prana, to increase good energy in our body, we shouldn't hoard that energy. It has to be shared. That is our duty. It can be shared in large ways or small ways. And it doesn't mean you have to become a yoga teacher. Teach by example. We should take that love, that good energy, that positive vibration, go out and do our best to make the world a better place. That is a yogi. A yogi is not one just waiting for their next asana. We have to be cautious that we do not turn yoga into another selfish endeavor. It's about me. What do I want? I want more. I want this. I want that. It's really about, we need the yoga. We need the practice to give ourselves some good energy, to try to have some positive vibration, but then we need to share it. And I know we're running out of time, but I want to say just quickly from myself, Protima, I really want to say thank you. I truly appreciate your energy in organizing all of this. And for those of you, I can't see you, but I think you're there. I want to say to all of you, I send you love and respect, and I hope that someday we get to see each other in person. But for now, I'm grateful for these technological wonders like this, that we get to communicate at least in this fashion.
Thank you so much, David. It has been such a, I mean, I have so many questions, and I think I'm going to drag you into another one soon. And I can't wait for you to come to Mumbai and teach us here in India. And I'm so grateful for your time. I had a lot of questions actually, but I think that's just 60 minutes is not enough. So I'm going to make sure that you come back again.
Well, now you have discovered that Texans like to talk.
I just want to end by, reading out a quote from this book, which I absolutely love, which is a book written by you, Ashtanga Yoga, the Practice Manual. Guys, please get this. It says, "The strongest trees in the forest grow the slowest." Would you like to quickly, say what that means in the context, so people have a takeaway for what yoga is?
I can say it in rather a simple way. You know, it's quite common now for yoga studios and things to have a 30-day challenge, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe you have those. That's okay, the 30-day challenge. But we can suffer through just about anything for 30 days. The yoga challenge is the 30-year challenge. This is a long journey. It's not 1 month, 2 months, yeah? I'd say think in terms of decades when we practice yoga, yeah? So the strongest trees in the forest, they grow the slowest. It's easy to go quickly and then just burn out. The trees that grow the fastest in the forest in Costa Rica, they call it pulpwood. They grow really fast. You plant this year, you come back next year, it's 12 feet tall. You go the next year, it's 20 feet tall. But it's so weak, this tree, that they grind it up and make paper. The trees that are really strong, it's taken them 100 years to grow. Our strength comes from a long, dedicated practice. This is our tapasya. Tapasya means a long journey, not just a quick hit. And so that's why I always tell people, have fun practicing. If you enjoy practicing today, it's not a discipline. If you find a way to enjoy it, it's okay. And I'm not an Ashtanga yoga evangelist out to save the world with Ashtanga. I just like it. I say, do the yoga you want. Do the thing that's going to give you energy and juice. Take that and just keep doing it the rest of your life. And then take that positive energy and share it with people around you. The world needs some good vibes right now.
Thank you. On that note, thank you so much. And I look forward to having you back again, and stay safe.